Now, what kind of a snake would steal a Madonna from a church? And on Christmas Eve, we're talking MacGyver. Hit it. It was 1985. The average movie ticket was $2.75. 500 travelers clashed with police on their way to Stonehenge. Mafia boss Paul Castellano was shot on orders of John Gotti, and MacGyver and Pete helped put on a fundraising Christmas show and find a stolen statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me are two Totally Rad Christmas all-stars. My first guest you'll know from the Cozy Christmas podcast. It's Art Kilmer. Art, how's it going?
Real good. I'm excited to talk about MacGyver tonight.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
This is definitely a good one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I can't wait to get into it. But before I do that, I got to introduce my second guest, who you've heard on the Now Watch This podcast. It's Joe Martinez. Joe, what's happening?
Jerry, Art, how's it going, man? I'm like Art. I'm excited to get into MacGyver. You know, I got my Swiss Army knife ready, and I'm
You got it.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into it, how have y'all been?
Good. We've avoided COVID the second round, so that's
Nice. That's always good.
I think we have anyway.
Well, that's always a plus.
A lot of people we know have been hit with it though, so I felt like we've been walking through a minefield trying to avoid everyone, but
Yeah,
but it's been going well. Yeah, we've had a good I was going to say spring, but no, it's still winter, isn't
it's
it?
still winter. Yeah. It's funny because it's Texas, so it was like 20 degrees, or it was 15 degrees, and then like the next day it was 70. So it's just Texas kind of does its own thing.
Yep. Well, today it was got up to 54 degrees, which is very unusual for Iowa. So my son and I went out bike riding today and just had a great time. It was really
Right
nice.
on.
Yeah.
Nice. And Joe, you're getting ready to move, aren't you?
yeah, Jerry. I'm getting ready to move, but man, we went through our second little freeze here in
Yeah.
if you can call it that, and
Right.
our city practically shut down for ice. The kids were off of school for 2 days
Yeah.
just because cold in the morning. I was just like, good Lord, man. These kids are eating out of home and they want to do this, but I guess it does help. They can pack some boxes and get ready because we're getting ready to move here in 2 weeks. And
Right on.
the wife has promised me that I can have my own little podcast studio, which means
Ooh,
walk-in
nice.
closet is all mine in the new house.
I understand. I'm here recording in the closet as well, so it all
Well,
works out.
Tonight I'm at the kitchen table tonight, or the dining room table tonight, because
Nice.
the attic is too cold. So
Oh yeah, I hear you. And up here, our attic's mostly just used for storage.
Yeah.
Speaking of good Lord, we're here to talk about MacGyver and the crazy episode. This was a good episode. I really loved it, but it was very different from the MacGyver that I remembered. But what's y'all's experience, or what do you remember about MacGyver?
Well, I remember coming into MacGyver and watching it, and then you'd always hear like his name is in the lexicon now, right? Like people talk about when they rig stuff up and they say, I MacGyvered it work, and it's it's almost a household kind of deal. I know they remade it, and there's a new MacGyver that's come out in the last few years, but I don't think it touches the old MacGyver. And after watching this episode, man, I got to go back because I remember watching MacGyver as a kid, but man, like this one hit some nerves, I guess to say.
Yeah, I don't remember this particular episode, although I do kind of remember the ice cream scene. It had a vague memory of it, so it's possible I didn't watch this one because it didn't have all the action adventure in it that I like.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I appreciate it a lot more than I did. But yeah, I came across MacGyver. I was probably 12 years old or so, which I think was just a key demographic for that show.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with it. That just his whole using his brain to get out of trouble deal. It was so good.
Yeah, because he doesn't use guns or anything, because I guess part of his backstory is that when he was a kid, I think he dropped a gun and it went off and he shot like his best friend, which is something that really does happen in real life. So I mean that like resonated with a lot of people. So he's like very anti-gun, which I think is pretty cool. You know, you don't really get that a lot from action heroes. I mean, especially in that time, it was, you know, Stallone, you know, it was Rambo and Schwarzenegger, like Commando and Predator, you know, just guns all over the place. And so, you know, this guy who just uses like duct tape and a Swiss Army knife and some paper clips and, you know, solving problems and disarming bombs and things like that. I mean, that was pretty revolutionary.
It was. Well, and I think back to, you know, when I was a kid and early teenager, there were a lot of gun accidents happening. I can remember that kids would get into their parents' gun, and I think it was around the time they started making a requirement for guns to have either be in a safe or have one of those gun locks or whatever. So, but yeah, I remember that episode when they kind of gave his backstory as to why he didn't like guns, and it was like, wow, this is really hitting the news right where the news is at right now. Yeah, seriously.
What I remember about MacGyver is he was a tough guy, right? Like no one ever, you know, he was considered up there with you know the action stars, but he showed emotion too.
Yes.
Like, and you see it a lot in this episode, particularly, but in other episodes, you know, he has that like they said, that classic backstory. And this one they get in the backstory about his mom passing. I think his dad passed in a car accident. He was raised by his grandpa. His grandpa had to go overseas. So he had all this stuff that went on with him. But, you know, he showed that he cared. You know, he wasn't just the macho, not afraid to cry guy, stuff like that, you know, that we never saw from Stallone or from, you know, Schwarzenegger, stuff like that. But, man, was this guy not an icon? Like, you look at him now. I mean, he's got the classic mullet.
He had good 80s mullet. Yeah.
High top white Nikes with stonewashed jeans.
Yep.
How many of us wanted that green jacket with the orange in it?
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because my parents didn't really watch MacGyver. So whenever I saw it, it was usually at either a grandparent's house or like an aunt or uncle's house. So I never really got to watch a lot of it, but I do remember like a lot of the, you know, the action scene. I remember he because isn't he afraid of heights? I think he's afraid of heights, but he still like he would climb up. And so I always thought, oh, that's really cool. That's inspiring. You know, he'd still get up there. I mean, unless my memory is wrong there, but I mean, I just, you know, you'd see him like climbing, rock climbing or things like that. And it's just like, wow, this guy, and he's not like built like, you know, the action stars of the day were. He was just like a regular guy. And when I found out later on, as I was getting my degree in physics, when I found out that he had a degree in physics too, I thought, oh, that's cool. All right. Maybe I can MacGyver something. I'm not MacGyver. I can't. but every once in a while, I like to think I can.
You're gonna make a podcast out of paperclip and chocolate fire, huh?
If anyone can do it, it'd be Jerry.
I'll figure out how to make my own mic.
There you
go. I found out that in the original show, a lot of the MacGyverisms, as they were called, were actually based in science and were like stuff that could be done. So nothing was done to where it was faked at all, which is what I hear about in the new show. Because I mean, like everything now, there's a podcast about everything, and there is a MacGyver podcast that I was able to get a hold of, doing a little bit of research, and yeah, man, they staunchly love the old one and hate the new one.
I haven't seen the new one, so I can't say.
Yeah.
But I know they did have, they actually did have consultants on the set to run everything by them. And hey, is this going to work? Although I also know that they would occasionally run contests and to see, like for fan submissions on like what the MacGyverism of the episode would be. And I think the one that most of them remember, like with the most enthusiasm, I guess, is where they use the egg to fix the engine. Like cracked an egg to fix an engine, something like that. And wow. That's cool.
And I'm not a science person at all. So to me, it's like what Arthur C. Clarke said, that there's if you advance science enough, there's an indistinguishable line between science and magic. I butchered that quote, but to me,
Thor kind of says that too. Yeah.
It's in Marvel somewhere. I heard that before.
Yeah, it's in Marvel. Okay, yeah. So as Thor says, I'm just, I just sit in awe of MacGyver every week. It's like, wow, he's doing magic. No, it's science. Like, okay, it's magic to me.
Okay, here it is. So you can patch up a vehicle's radiator by cracking an egg into it. That's what it was.
So here's the thing too. We grew up in the 80s. In the 80s, we had Mr. Wizard. You remember that?
Yes, I do remember Mr. Wizard, because I actually had a book. And when it was time for the science fair one year, I remember like looking in the book and trying to come up with, ideas for a science project based on some of those things. And one of them was like, you'd create basically a magnet with, then you'd create one of those, basically you hook up the wire, you wrap it around like a nail or something iron, and anyway, and then you'd create like a little man out of paper clips, and then you could make the man dance depending on how you flip the switch. So that was like super cool, so yeah, I totally remember Mr. Wizard. But yeah, you're right. MacGyver has now become like a staple in everyday life. Surprisingly enough, the show actually was created by John Rich and Lee David Zlotoff, but also Henry Winkler, which the Fonz. Yeah, I had no idea that he was responsible for creating the show. That blows my mind, because like the Fonz was cool, but definitely. He wasn't MacGyver,
Maybe he let MacGyver use one of his jackets maybe one day or something. I don't know. I know he did appear in a couple of episodes as, I think, a dealer or an insurance dealer or something like that.
An agent.
But yeah, he was, isn't he?
I definitely wouldn't put him past him. I know they specifically picked Richard Dean Anderson when they were casting because they felt he could emote more than all the others who were just kind of the macho, I can do this, I'm MacGyver. And so he brought like that intensity, but like also that heartfelt, I guess I'll say it again, emotion to it. Yeah. Which is, again, and you'd see him, like he would get sad when some things would happen. So while I don't recall like a lot of specific episodes, I like have pictures of scenes that like pop in my head that I can imagine, and I do recall just seeing him sad or seeing him kind of pensive when something happens. But Yes, he's so much part of the culture now that, MacGruber was based off of him from Saturday Night Live.
He actually appeared in MacGruber and confirmed that MacGyver is his dad.
Well, MacGyver does have a son.
Yeah, he does.
Yep.
MacGyver, pass me that thumbtack.
I'd go with the gum wrapper.
And I care about what you're saying because...
I'm just saying I'd do it a little differently.
Well, MacGyver, you're not MacGruber.
That's what you think.
What's that supposed to mean?
10 seconds!
It was a cold December night.
It's a boy, Mr. MacGyver. What are you going to call him?
MacGruber.
MacGruber MacGyver?
The perfect name for the perfect baby.
But Richard Dean Anderson, like, you can see in his eyes, you can see him. I mean, one of the most important things about MacGyver is, like you said, the way he thinks and how he thinks of things, and whether it's a nonviolent way to get out of situations and stuff like that. But you could see it in his eyes, see him thinking about how to do this or how to do that. So I mean, dude's a perfect guy to it. And like I said, I remember watching the show, but I'm definitely going back.
Yeah.
And watching again.
Did you guys ever see him in Stargate?
Oh, yeah.
Because I haven't watched that. I'll probably get around to it one of these days. But
yeah,
I've only seen like an episode or two, and I actually liked the movie Stargate, and I always wanted to see the series, but it was usually on when something else I would watch was on, so I just never got around to it.
But yeah, and that series ran.
That was on for a while. Yeah.
Wow, and then he went to that one.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I liked, like I said, I liked the movie. I probably would check it out eventually one of these days. I've heard good things about it. I just never actually seen it. But before we jump into the episode, I want to give a quick history of MacGyver. So even though originally his birth date was January 23rd, 1951, it was actually changed in season 2. And then they kept it throughout the rest of it to March 23rd, 1952. Which I thought was kind of cool. Of course, he was in the Cub Scouts, and the Den Mother kind of, really hit him hard with that always be prepared motto. And so he always carried around his, a roll of duct tape, some paper clips. He has the Swiss Army knife that he always uses. And like you said, he was raised by his grandpa. He went to Western Tech, where he got dual degrees in chemistry and physics. And then he was a bomb defusing or member of a bomb defusing team in Vietnam, which I thought was kind of cool as well. And then he also spent some time fighting fires in oil wells in Sumatra. It's like, man, I mean, okay, man, this guy.
As one does, yeah.
You graduate from college, you go fight fires,
Story.
Then this is where, so he joined the Department of External Services, which is not a real government department, guys, just so you know. And he was kind of an agent there. And then eventually he joined the Phoenix Foundation, again, another fictional agency, where he was kind of a, I don't know, troubleshooter, I guess you could say. So whenever they need someone to kind of help clean up or
get rid of a problem.
Yeah, they'd call him up and he'd take care of that. And so that's kind of where we are when all this happens.
Well, I have one regret, and it's about this show, is that we didn't watch it in Brazil, because apparently the Brazilian broadcast theme song was Rush's Tom Sawyer.
Not sure what that has to do with MacGyver, right? But that sounds awesome.
I'm saying, can you imagine if this show started and then oh my God. Rush's Tom Sawyer for the longest time when I was a kid, and you had to think of what would your wrestling theme song be as you walk to the ring? It was versus Tom
And
Sawyer.
yours would be Tom Sawyer. See, I didn't really watch wrestling. The only thing I know about wrestling is Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, the cartoon, and No Holds Barred, the movie. Those are like the only real things I know about wrestling until I got to college, and my college roommate used to watch wrestling. But usually whenever he'd turn it on, I'd go to my room and just play guitar. So I don't really know a lot about wrestling, but I guess my theme song, I have no idea. I don't know.
It's a totally rad theme now.
Well, nowadays, yeah.
There you go.
But I guess we can just go ahead and jump into this episode.
Yeah.
So, like we said, there's not really a lot of action in it. Like but there's kind of magic, Christmas magic, or divine providence. I don't know what you'd call it. And we'll get into it, but it's very, very different from most MacGyver episodes, even though he still cares and he's still trying to help. So that thread is still the same, but it just it wasn't as action packed, so I can see why you might have skipped it. Art.
Yeah. Well, and I can remember there were a few episodes where that would happen. It would be more of a quieter, I don't know what you call it, personal development episode or something like this one,
right? Like character building or something.
Yeah. But what I liked, they always showed. I mean, it shows him to be a nice guy, like a good guy, and I like that. Yeah.
He really is. I mean, and I think later on he becomes a vegetarian in the show.
I think so.
I wouldn't doubt if a lot of those episodes, because I know the budget, because the ratings were never like magnificent. They were, pretty good, but they were never like superb ratings. So I know later on as the seasons progressed and he stopped doing his own stunts because he kept getting injured. Then I know that, the budget kind of went down a little bit. So it could be maybe some of these more introspective episodes kind of happened because they were using up their budget. I don't know.
Like, hey, we blew the budget on falling out of the helicopter last episode. So.
Yeah, exactly. That helicopter stunt was pretty big, and I know you broke your foot. Sorry.
Hey, we're gonna keep you in the ground, but I think like even especially for this one, if you were looking for MacGyverisms, this one probably isn't the episode that you're looking for.
Yeah.
No bomb disposal or anything.
No.
But the little thought that he put into this this problem that they had and how he fixed it, I mean, I think that was good enough. But
if
you were looking at the action pack, falling out of a helicopter episode or stuff like that, this one wasn't it. But dang, this one was good. Like very good.
Yeah, it really emotionally, I think it was action packed.
Yeah.
Christmas miracle that happens as well.
Christmas miracle, yeah.
I really love that they went there. They didn't, flat out hit you in the face with it. You had to kind of think about it a little bit, but it was really good. Like it was strong.
I agree. I think if we were to nutshell it, because I like to nutshell these things before we dive in, but essentially a statue of the Blessed Virgin is stolen. They call it the Madonna, which is an Italian form of just literally just means like my lady. A statue of the Blessed Virgin is stolen, and MacGyver has to try to find it while helping put on a Christmas show. So
That old trope.
you got to have a Christmas show somewhere in your Christmas episode.
All that it was missing is Muppets now. That's how you put it that way.
The first episode I did with Jerry, it was for the Scooby-Doo kids to come out and stole it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a nutcracker that was stolen and they had to find it.
Well, they had to put on a show.
I think it's becoming a trope that Joe only appears on episodes where something's stolen.
It wasn't me.
I like it.
I'm like Reese in this episode. It wasn't me, honest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, so this is what St. Mary's Church, I think it was St. Mary's, right? Something like that. But it starts off, and I love it because it really reminded me of like our church, where the ladies from the Altar Society or the Altar Guild are there, swapping out the candles, and as she comes in, she's like not berating, but like remonstrating father, hey, I should, I want to be the one to polish that wood. And he's like, no, I got it. I got to earn my brownie points somehow, and they hear a weird noise, which sounded to me like a squeak or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they go back to the other room and they notice all of a sudden the statue's missing. That's like the very first thing. And they keep calling it the Madonna, which is not really, ever since the singer came out, it's not really a popular term used anymore, I think.
Yes. But I think back in the day that really, it was the Madonna.
Yeah. So I looked up the etymology because I'm nerdy like that. And so it comes from an early Italian mia donna, and donna comes from domina, which is Latin for lady. So eventually, because dominus is what we use in the Latin Rite, because I'm a member, I'm a Roman Rite member of the Latin Church. And so we use the word dominus with the capital D, of course, to refer to God, our Lord. But however, you still have lords and ladies in like medieval times. So they would use domnus without the I, and of course the lowercase d, and that would mean Lord. So, and then domna would be the lady. And so mia domna would be my lady. And then it kind of got combined to Madonna. So anyway, long story short, we're not talking about the singer.
you answered my question, because I was wondering, because I've heard the term Madonna before, but I didn't know how that applied, and was it different than Mary, or is it the same thing? So that's interesting.
It is the same thing. Yeah. It's, and you'll hear Catholics say Our Lady,
Sure.
Our Lord and Our Lady. And it's kind of basically what Madonna means. It's just like a portmanteau, I suppose, of the Italian.
Got it.
Yeah. But the statue's missing, and they're like, the Madonna's missing. And so then we cut to, it's like a hard cut to MacGyver and Pete loading up the van with, some toys, right? For delivery at, I wrote it down. The Challengers Club. That's
Challengers Club. Yes.
Challengers Club, which is, I guess, like a boys and girls club kind of thing.
Yes. And as they're putting in the presents, Pete makes the cut. He's like, I think I'm getting a hernia for Christmas, but
yeah, it's a good.
They had
good
that little note where I'll be home for Christmas is playing on the radio.
Oh, and,
and Ivor hears it, and he goes over and turns it off, and you can start to see that little. It's starting to bother him a little bit.
Yeah, because he says something like, "I think it just gets a little too sappy," or something like that. Yeah.
Well, okay, you just Joe, you just blew my mind now, because that song comes back later in the episode, and I didn't remember it from the beginning. So that's cool.
Yeah,
that's neat.
Yeah. It was a well-written episode. I really enjoyed this one.
they put some thought into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at the end there, man, when I really liked the rendition that was sung.
With the choir, and
I kind of want to find that or rip it, or
you might have to rip it. But I know they kind of interrupt a little bit for MacGyver and Father Lafferty's speech. I doubt you'll find the actual recordings of it anywhere, but you never know. This is 2022, and you find all sorts of things on the internet.
it was very strong, man. I know somebody out there has done it, or
probably.
But man, it was strong, and safe to say for me is that will go into my playlist.
Into your playlist, yeah. Well, and as Pete's talking to MacGyver, we get the first hint that this is, MacGyver lost his mom. He knows it's hard on him. Pete's like, hey, I get it. It's cool. But this is where we're introduced to Carol, who's and I don't know what the proper term is.
She was in between homes.
In between. There you go. Yes, she's in between homes. She has a cart full of stuff. And some two young punks are harassing her, and so MacGyver and goes to save him. And so they're like, they see her and how she seems sort of destitute, and so they ask if she has a place to stay. And that's when MacGyver says, I know a place, and that leads us to the Challengers Club.
Yeah.
Oh, just to interrupt real quick.
Go for it. Yeah.
When she was chasing after them and then fell on the ground,
man,
I felt that. Like, I don't know. That was a hard fall.
Yeah.
And I actually paused it, and I'm like, ow. that was a hard fall.
Yeah.
sorry to
Lady?
sidetrack you, but
No, I get it, man. You gotta like to before you get out of bed, you gotta, warm up a little bit. You gotta stretch. Okay,
Yep.
all right. I don't remember ever having to do that.
there you go.
After that fall, I'm gonna feel that for a couple of days. But the lady that played her, I was trying to think. I recognized it from somewhere. But do any of you remember she was the old lady in Cloak and Dagger?
Yes.
That's her. That's where she came from. And I was like, where do I know her from? But yeah, it was from there.
Said he had to give it to some foreign spy.
No.
Really? Did you say what the spy looked like?
Only that he had 2 fingers missing.
How exciting. May I see the tape, Davy?
Sure.
Something wrong, Davy?
And I mean, it was awesome. I mean, her name's Carol, Christmas Carol.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's also had quite a few voice roles, like in The Rescuers and The Fox and the Hound and things like that as well.
Okay.
The actress is Jeanette Nolan was her name. But yeah, she also hurts her hand, which that might be important.
I couldn't tell, but when they had that little jingle, or you heard that little Christmas.
Yeah, there was like the sound effect of like the Christmas magic. It's like that. Yeah. Like sparkles or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what brings us to the Challengers Club, where we meet Cynthia again, and I think she's come out in the show before, right?
I don't remember.
I want to say I remembered her from like a couple of episodes, but again, I haven't seen it in a long time, so it could just be my mind playing tricks on me. But apparently, her and her husband opened up the Challengers Club, and he had just recently passed away.
And he was a part of the show too.
It was like part of the the dream to run this club for to keep kids off the streets and help them out and things like that. And now that he's passed away, they're trying to make sure they can keep it going, because we get another classic TV Christmas trope with the new landlord. He's gonna foreclose on us unless we can pay not only this rent, but we got to have a deposit plus the last month's rent, and I mean it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so this Christmas show is like a fundraiser for them.
I mean, yeah, we all bought it, right? Like, I mean, in the 80s, no one said nothing about it. Like, it's like, oh yeah, of course that happened.
Yep.
But one of the things I did always like about the show, and that I come to find out, is that like even the character that played Breeze, a few episodes prior, he was one of the gangsters on the street that they actually helped and brought into the Challengers Club.
Oh wow!
With Cynthia and her husband. So, like you said, they kept past characters, and then
which I love, yeah,
the line and stuff like that. So, I always like that aspect of the show. Like, it's this guy who was just extra in a few episodes ago. Now he's just doing a little bit more, and
he's more of a main player in this one. Yeah.
Same thing happened with Julio that's in this episode. I mean, he only plays the piano in this episode, but in a few more episodes, he becomes more
prominent.
Prominent role, yeah.
Yeah, and that little kid Julio, he actually did the voice of Kid Icarus and Captain N.
My arrows will stop that Apicus Maximus.
So I thought that was super cool. I was like, yeah, Captain N.
He was in Stargate as well with Richard Dean
Anderson. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so.
Oh man, all grown up that just to make you feel old, It's like when you see one of your old students and you're like, oh man, okay, time has gone by. Man. Well, the guy that played Breeze, actually, he was in the pilot episode of 21 Jump Street. And I only know that because I just recorded on 21 Jump Street, and so I had to watch the pilot to kind of get into the show. And he's like one of the punks, like the two main villains of that pilot episode. So I was like, hey, I know that guy.
Hey, it might come back a little bit later in my in our closing sections.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yep. Oh man. Well, so Carol's hurt her hand. MacGyver's stitching her up, and she's like, "Oh, you should have been a doctor." And I bet your mom always wanted you to be a doctor or something. He's like, "No," but she knew I was just, I was good with my hands. She's like, "Well, she was right."
All right, there we go. It's about as good as new.
Splendid. Thank you. I bet your mother always wanted you to be a doctor.
Well, not exactly, but she did always say I was pretty good with my hands.
She was right.
But she also she overhears Cynthia saying that, hey, we need $9,000 in donations, or we're gonna have to be out. And so she again reassures her, hey, it's okay, you're gonna make it, don't worry about it. So that's again another hint that, hey, something about this woman is not quite usual, I guess. Mm-hmm. Is a nice way to say it.
It was a little bit earlier too in the episode. I think we kind of went over it, but she puts on the TV when it talks about the Madonna being stolen.
Oh, she does, doesn't she? Yeah.
And that causes MacGyver and Pete to overhear, and then it's almost like she's putting them all in these situations and getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, because it's there that they hear Father Lafferty, and it turns out that he is one of MacGyver's old schoolmates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's like, what? Lafferty. So they go to help him out, and he's like, hey, I just remember, it's funny seeing you in that collar, because I just picture that kid that used to push me up against the boards, because by the way, MacGyver is like a hockey player. That's like a part of his backstory as well. He was really good at hockey, and he loved playing. But I found that bit funny because he's like, yeah, it's weird seeing you in that, because you just used to throw me up against the boards. And Pete's the father's like, I remember it the other way around.
I was gonna say that father had the scrawniest arms, and I just cannot.
There's no way
imagine him.
There's no way he would have put MacGyver up against the boards.
No. He did not look like a hockey player at all, even a former hockey player.
Definitely not. No. Oh man.
Well, I want to say they were supposed to be in California, aren't they? Was there a lot of hockey going on in California?
I mean, I used to live in LA for a few weeks. It was 2 months or so. I was on an internship. I was working at Boeing North American in their space shuttle division. This was back when I was in between my junior and senior years of high school. And I remember that my RA at the place we stayed at was super into hockey. And so he would have games and things like that. So at least in California, I know that some people played hockey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that's not down here.
No, hockey's not really huge down here.
Yeah,
in Texas. Yeah. But I mean, I guess some people play it because we do have the Dallas Stars. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Breeze is kind of, he's still kind of giving attitude to Cynthia, but I mean, she's also very frustrated, and she's still kind of hurting from the loss of her husband. And so, and now the news that she needs $9,000. So she's also kind of on his case a little bit as well. Some of the things he was doing, he was just moving, the stage like she asked, but she got after him a little too hard, I think. And so he was like, I don't need this. And he takes off.
Can't say I blame him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, I get it. If someone was after me like that, I'd probably just be like, see ya. But
yeah.
Well, you know what they say, hurting people hurt people. So
that's I don't know if that's a thing, but
okay.
it sounds good. Yeah,
it does. Yeah.
I've heard that, Art. I've heard that. Yeah.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that. Okay. Well, then I guess I'm the odd man out.
People who are hurting usually try to turn that hurt on other people. And Well, I don't know if that was her intentions, but
No, I don't think she did it on purpose. I think
and Christmas sometimes is a stressful situation for some people, I guess.
Well, especially when you've just lost, a loved one.
Yeah.
And of course, in these last couple of years, that's been really frequent, unfortunately. But so yeah, she was definitely. You could tell that she was her, and I gotta give the actress like kudos because she really played up, that hurt really well. I thought she did a phenomenal job on that.
No, I mean, now I want to know if was that her really singing at the end.
I think it was actually. Because she was a Broadway star as well. Is my understanding.
Okay.
So when MacGyver and Peter talk into Father Lafferty, the sacristan is there as well, and she starts saying, "Oh, you know who stole it? It's got to be that. It's got to be that guy. Was his name Vincent Battaglia? Yeah." It's got to be him. And so we find out the backstory. He carved this wooden statue, the Madonna. He carved it with like 15 years ago or something like that, or 20 years ago. And after his wife passed, then he like stopped going to church. So she's like, it's got to be him. He's kind of hated. He's had a grudge against the church ever since then, which is another thing that you find. And, where people, they get very angry with God when people that they love die, especially if they're praying as hard as they can. And that's something that we've, at least I've had to learn, that sometimes prayer isn't answered the way you want it to be answered. Sometimes, there's something better for you down the line, or there's a reason, that things happen. And so because of that, he's very hurt. And so he left the church. And so the sacristan's blaming him, this Vincent Battaglia guy. Yes. So they go to interview him at his furniture store. And he mentions how he, he goes through that whole thing where he basically is like, how can such a compassionate God, do this to me? And we prayed every day before in front of that statue, and just a lot of things like that. And so you feel bad for the gentleman.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting a lesson in theodicy. I think is
right. Yeah.
Why do bad things happen? And how can a good God allow bad things to happen? Kind of study. But I'm like, wow, that's a deep question.
Yeah, there's like a whole theological lesson on the problem of evil right there.
Right. Yeah.
It's like MacGyver. I just wanted to see him like make a bomb out of a paperclip.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things about this episode that wouldn't go in today's culture and stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of it probably wouldn't be aired. Yeah.
Anymore. Yeah, they don't allow them, like, just the little things, like when she says like Saint Nicholas or something like that. You don't even hear that anymore. It's always Santa or this, that, which is fine. You don't go into it anymore.
But speaking of Santa Claus, so MacGyver and Pete see a Santa Claus outside, and it's like his costume is like, it's terrible. The beard is like not white; it's like a grayish, awful, dirty color. And Pete's like trying to give him a lesson, and basically they're questioning him a little bit about, hey, have you seen anything? There was a statue that was stolen, and the guy is like, oh, maybe, but you just got to put some money in the pot. But Pete's even like, hey, come on, you're Santa, be enthusiastic. You got to ho ho ho, and the guy's like, whatever. I'm just here. I need a job. That's all.
Yeah, I love that part, and I got thinking, oh, Pete would make a great Santa. So,
wink, wink.
Yeah.
We'll see you there at the end. He said, you call yourself Santa? And he's like, I call myself employed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, oh, God.
But basically he says, hey, look, he's like, hey, I did see something. There was this bag lady that was coming around the corner. I think that's what he calls her, coming around the corner. And so they're like, well, I guess let's go talk to Carol. And they're like, feel terrible. They know, they just have like this feeling that she didn't do it. Something's not right, but they have to question her now. And so I like how she basically calls them out on it. she's like,
Yeah.
hey, I get it. You're just, you got to eliminate suspects. It is what it is. But, if you don't believe I did it, you guys sure you look like you feel really guilty.
Yeah. I love her question where it was something like that. Like, if there's nothing wrong, why do you feel so guilty?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, burn.
Yeah,
got him.
exactly. So, see, they examine, they look at her stuff, and now it doesn't seem like there's anything there. I think they find like, what is it, like a gnome or something, a garden gnome, I think.
Yeah.
And so they're like, all right, well, we didn't think it was you, but whatever. But also then we get like another little subplot here where, to get ready for the show, MacGyver is like helping this little girl who is kind of nervous about the show. And so he opens up to her, and this becomes important later on, but he opens up to her about whenever he or his mom would get real scared, they'd had like a word, like a word they would use to kind of calm themselves down and, communicate, hey, everything's going to be okay. And so their secret word was like ice cream. And so he tells the little girl that, and she kind of laughs, and but she also feels better about it. Of course, Pete's like, hey, that was a great memory you had about your mom. That's, things aren't always bad. Hey,
That was a nice story about your mother. Yeah. Well, Christmas,
Yeah, you can feel like I mean, Pete's hurting for him, for MacGyver.
Yeah.
Like he feeling for him, and he just wants him to turn that corner and get to feeling good about it. But MacGyver's really hurting, and I that's why I really felt that ending where, again, this scene here links up at the end. Oh man, it just hits the feels a little bit.
Yeah. And while this is happening, Breeze and the guys are trying to move the stage. And this is where we get like a only real like MacGyverism of the episode, where I guess he like drops some weights or something. And of course, Cynthia's like, she gets super angry with him. Like, there are kids here. What are you doing? You can't just move things. And so Breeze like walks out, and MacGyver shows the other guys, hey, let's use the weights as like wheels essentially. And kind of like how they did it in whenever they'd have to take their ships across land, and they would just use logs, that kind of a thing. And so so that's like the biggest MacGyverism we get, which is crazy.
It's good. It worked.
It worked. They moved the stage. He's like, yeah, whatever you need, just use these weights.
Yeah. He's like, Breezy, and the guy's like, why didn't I think of that? He's like, yeah. Why didn't you think of that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why didn't you think of that? Of course, this is where Cynthia kind of breaks down and is like, I don't know if I can keep everything open. And Carol, meanwhile, Carol, of course, the older lady, she goes to talk to Breeze, and this is my favorite part, I think, of the whole episode, where they have like this game of pool. She's like, hey, let's play some pool. He's like, whatever. She's like, what did she say? I got an Abe Lincoln or something that's, yeah. So she stakes $5. He's like, all right, fine. And I like how she holds the pool cue backwards, like she was going to hit it with the handle. And and he's like, well, you got your own unique style.
It's a classic hustler there. She's pretending she doesn't know how to play the game.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is again where we get like a glimpse that something's different about her, because she like winks and does a few things and like makes various trick shots happen, and makes makes him scratch on the 8-ball, and she basically rigs the game. But then she like gets after him, like can't you see Cynthia's hurting? This is like, I know you didn't really have Christmases growing up. She did, and now she doesn't, because the one person that she had to be with is gone. And you could make things easier for her. And I mean, she really kind of gets after him and kicks him into gear.
Yeah, she totally, I think, changes his outlook there, and his attitude from the beginning of the show to then. Man, it was like 180 degrees.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. Just she just knew what to say that he needed to hear, I guess, and I like that he just turns himself around and is like, all right, let's help her out. She's hurting. We're gonna help her out. So I really like that part.
I did too. Yeah. That's really like my favorite part because he comes back and he's like, "Hey, look, I decided to give you less attitude and more cooperation." And she's like that. Now that's a Christmas gift, that I'll take. She's like, and you don't even have to wrap it. Which is a good line.
How would you wrap it? I don't know.
I don't know. And she's funny because then she goes up to Carol. She's like, "What'd you say to him?" She's like, "Oh, we just played pool. We just played a friendly.
We just played a little bit of 8-ball."
That's it. Yeah. Oh man. And then of course we get so Father Lafferty comes in. They're getting ready for the show, and he's like, "I don't know what we're gonna do." And of course, this is when Carol's like, "Oh, don't worry, it's gonna be fine." And he's like, or she says something like, "Every time I've been in on at the Christmas service, it's always been magnificent." And he's like,
Yes.
I don't recognize you. Are you a parishioner?" And she makes an excuse like, "I'm usually dressed a little bit better," or something like that.
Everything starts clicking, man. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like hint, hint. She's sculpted very nice. But Father Rafferty and MacGyver go up to Breeze and they're like, "Hey, we need your help. The statue has been stolen." And of course, he's very defensive right away. He's like, "I didn't take it." And they're like, No. That's, we need your help, like trying to find it. Like, can you get some of the kids and we'll go out knocking on doors? And so he's like, "Yeah, we can do that." And so the show comes on, and this is where we cut to Mr. Battaglia, who took out like a box, and inside the box is like a statue of the baby Jesus that he had carved to go in the hands of that Madonna statue, but he never delivered it, out of anger and sorrow. So that's just a little glimpse. Of course, that's just setting up something later, but you can see his kind of emotion that he's going through as well. This episode really deals with like some of the hurt and feelings of loss at Christmas time, which is not something that a lot of Christmas episodes really deal with, especially ones from this era. Most of the time they're about just fun, mirth and we're with family and togetherness. So this one actually kind of really deals with that, and I really enjoyed it.
It was strong, man. It really, I mean, without kind of even going too deep, but it did, everyone had lost somebody, and how did they recover, and how were they still recovering and struggling with that? So, man, it just, hey, I'm not ashamed to say, I might have, been a little misty-eyed there at the end.
Yeah, I had an allergic reaction to something. Yeah.
I was chopping onions. That's what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it was at this part in the episode where I thought, okay, there are a lot of plot lines that have been laid down now.
Yeah.
How is this all going to get wrapped up? And I'm wondering by this point, like, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull this off or not. So we'll see how it all ends. But
yeah, and you're right. There were a lot of little threads, but they interconnected very well. So now the show is started. We get MacGyver checking in on Cynthia, and apparently they're like $2,700 short. It's like 2,711, something like that.
Yes.
Short, and they're like, "Okay, well, I mean, I don't know what else we can do." But during the show, I really liked the show because they sang, of course, they say Julio, they bring Julio out, the little boy that I mentioned was Kid Icarus's voice, and he starts playing Hark the Herald Angel, and they start singing, and then they play one of my all-time favorite Christmas songs, which is "O Come All Ye Faithful."
Yes, it was a beautiful rendition of that too.
It was a nice choral version. Which I thought was really cool, that I actually knew the tenor line. I was like singing along with the tenor line. I was like, "Hey, I know this arrangement." And
then not only that, but the choir, man, it was, it was kids from everywhere, I guess, all ages, all races, all together, singing. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's something I noticed about this episode too. Is just there's a lot of diversity in the cast,
Yeah.
and you don't always get that from the 1980s.
No, you really don't.
Sorry to say, I'll throw it out there, but
no, it's true, and I love the 80s, but you're right. It doesn't. Not so good in that respect. So it was really nice and refreshing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we get the little girl with the stage fright, and so MacGyver is in the audience, and she's looking out, not wanting to come out, and and so he kind of mouths ice cream, which was a word that he told her about, that between him and his mom, and so she starts feeling better, and so she comes out, and then they start their show. But we get Cynthia coming on stage when that's done, and she starts singing "I'll Be Home for Christmas." And MacGyver gets up to get some air, and we realize it's because that was like his mom's favorite song. So hearing it reminds him of his mom, and we find out in this episode that he had called on like Christmas Eve or something and said that he wasn't going to be able to make it because he was on an assignment. Yeah. And the next day, she had a stroke and passed. And and so he feels like super regret and guilt that, one, he wasn't there, two, it was Christmas and he wasn't with her, and so we get Father Lafferty coming to him and saying, hey, I it's okay, there's nothing you could have done, it doesn't matter, even if you were there, she wouldn't have known, she was, because of the stroke, she was just mumbling something about you, like saying your name and ice cream. And so hearing that, oh man, this got me for real. But hearing that like brought him, I don't know, some sort of comfort or closure, and knowing that everything was going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that she was okay, right? Because when you lose a loved one like that or something, that's what you wonder, especially if you weren't there. It's like, how did they go? Did they go peacefully? Were they okay and stuff like that? So it gets to tell him that, maybe she was okay, man. But his face goes through the whole emotions of hearing it, of processing it, and then the emotion that comes out of that, man. It was so good.
Yeah, he acted the heck out of that scene.
I love our 80s action stars, but I don't know how many of them would have gave us that.
I don't think Schwarzenegger could have done it. And I love Schwarzenegger, but yeah.
Went to some places.
Yeah. Well, I like the vulnerability. I mean, I do. Right. He's he can be tough when he needs to be, but he's a gentle and kind and giving person, and I think that really has just really adds to his character overall.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it in the beginning of the show. I mean, he's always going to do the right thing, from helping the lady out, and chasing those two punks. And he's like, yeah, Merry Christmas too, you punks. He's always going to do the right thing, and he's always going to help and like that. So,
Then we get Pete coming in dressed as Santa.
That made me really happy. Yeah. I was like, oh wow, asking you shall receive.
There you
go. And he made a good Santa.
He did make a good Santa, yeah. And so he starts giving presents and everything, and as they're in the back checking to see how much they raised and everything, they discover the exact amount that they needed in the donation. Yeah, and it was in a little, I don't know, handbag or pouch that belonged to Carol.
Yeah,
and they're like, okay, but then they can't find her anywhere. So she's moved on.
It was cool because we kind of went over a little bit earlier. Jerry Ruiz is the one that introduces Christina, right? To bring her up to come sing, and he talks about
Cynthia, like
Cynthia, I'm sorry, Christina, Cynthia, to come up to sing, and he talks about how her and her husband started the thing. So I think it starts there, and then he's the one that calls them and says, "Hey, you need to come see this." And it was in the donation, and it's Carol's because he remembers when he he had the interaction when they were playing pool. So yeah, man, Breeze was just a totally different person in this last part of the episode.
Mm-hmm. After that talk with Carol, yeah, he really changed. And was it just me, or like when she was as she was walking away and kind of smiling, was it like was there like a glow or like a light like around her? I don't know.
I didn't catch it.
Breeze go through her hair.
Something, yeah. I don't know, but
I don't recall.
Anyway, there's a lot of little funny, I don't know, angelic something's interesting about her. So they go, it's the next day, they go to tell Father Lafferty basically that they didn't find the statue. And that's when the little boy comes in.
Yeah.
I love this part. He has a wagon, and basically the little boy made like in Spanish we would call it a promesa, where like you ask for the intercession of a saint, in this case the Blessed Virgin, the little boy did, and that if he got his wagon that he would give her a ride, and so so he had this the statue of the Madonna statue in the wagon, and the Father Rafferty's like, hey, or Lafferty, excuse me, is like, hey, did you took the statue? He's like, no, I promise I didn't, but I got my wagon and then I went to come give her a ride, and there she was already for me. So so he brought her in and took her back to the church, and everyone's just like, huh, okay, that's odd.
At the same time, Mr. Battaglia, he comes back and he apologizes to the Father and just says, you know why I wasn't. I made this baby Jesus to sit in the Blessed Virgin's arms. So he comes back to the church, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, it's all really nice. He found his faith again. But as he's putting the baby Jesus in the arms of the Madonna statue, he notices that there is a scratch on her hand in the exact same place that Carol had a scratch on her hand. He's like, oh, I'll fix that.
I love that. I love that trope where there's enough there. It was that magic, or in this case, was that an angel, or is that Mary or not, and it leaves them wondering at the end, like, I love that. It makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. Yeah.
Well, and I know like the only other MacGyver episode I have any strong memories of is one that had to do with UFOs, and there was like this bizarre vacuum cleaner salesman hanging around and would always seem to come in and rescue MacGyver or something like that. And there's a little twist at the end where it's like, was he actually an alien or was he just a person? And I was huge into UFOs when I was a kid and teenager. And so that made me so excited. It's like, yes, there's the possibility that they just didn't explain it away with science. I didn't like that on Scooby-Doo, where it's like, oh, it's just this guy in a costume. It wasn't a real ghost. And like, oh, come on, I want a ghost.
Well, which they later did have.
Yeah.
Like the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo or some of those others. But I mean, it seems, at least they're according to everything they've kind of set up, it does seem like the statue of the Madonna actually came to life essentially and interceded. So I don't know, it's I do like how they kind of leave it up, and it's just like this whole Christmas magic kind of vibe, but definitely, like you said, definitely much different from your typical MacGyver episode where there's a problem, okay, you got to go fix it. That's a Christmas movie trope too, where, hey, was that mysterious old guy Santa? Exactly. Yeah.
And like I said, I love it when that happens. It just delights me. So
Oh, me too. Yeah, and I kind of wish there was a few more of those. I mean, even Hallmark has done them. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of movie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The Preacher's Wife, where Denzel's an alien. I mean,
an angel.
An angel.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, I love stuff like that.
Yep. I agree.
Well,
But
Jerry, I know I asked in our chat, but I was going to ask, is that some, I don't remember how I put it now, but does Mary often intercede like that, bodily, or?
So usually whenever like in all the apparitions and the approved apparitions, usually she appears to, you know, the person, and she usually just delivers a message like, you know, hey, you know, the father wants this to happen, or wants to do that. And if you pray this particular prayer or say this, you know, then, you know, such and such will happen. It's usually that kind of a thing. Like she doesn't actually, or at least typically, in all the approved apparitions, she hasn't actually come down and, you know, taken physical form and you know, interacted
played
with them.
pool and
Exactly. Yeah. No, I've never seen her play pool, but it's usually very much like, you know, here's the message
Okay.
from, you know, from God or from my son Jesus, you know, things like that.
Sure.
So yeah, that's definitely a bit unusual. More often you'll hear stories of like whenever something has interceded like that, like actually physically, it's usually angels that have done that.
Right. And that's what I was expecting her to
Me
be
too.
an angel. Yeah. So I really like the creativity there, that it's not what you thought.
Definitely. Yeah. I think overall I really, really like this episode.
Yeah.
But I also think it would have been pretty cool if he had to like defuse a bomb or something. I don't know. Although I don't know how they would have put it in.
Someone's going to burn down the center for the insurance.
That's
money.
right. Yeah, there's like there's a gas leak or something. How are we going to stop it?
But I too is it's I think for me this is definitely going in the canon. Like I mean,
think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. This one's gonna be one that I'm gonna bust out and I'm gonna force my wife and kids to watch every season, and you know they probably, you know, won't be too into it, but you know it's up there for me right now.
Yeah, same here. I really enjoyed it. But so I do have a question. Would you want to be in this episode? And if so, who would you be?
No. Oh man. I mean, I think I'd be Julio.
Play the piano.
It's a good safe answer there. Yeah.
Okay, this might go completely against character for me, but I might have liked to have played the drunk Santa that Carol starts whacking with the balloon or the broom. He's a saint, you know, whack. That would have just been fun.
I think I'd be pretty good. I think at the at that the other Santa part. It's my job.
It's my job.
I'm employed. What are you gonna do? Yeah.
Jerry, you're definitely in the choir.
Oh, there we go.
I didn't know, and I was like, was that a 1980 something, Jerry?
That's right.
Oh man. But what would you guys say would be your happiest memory or moment with MacGyver or this episode?
Hart, let you go first.
Oh, yeah, thanks. No, well, when I first saw MacGyver, it was my parents had divorced. I was about 12 years old or so, and so for a while, we lived with my grandparents, and they would watch MacGyver. You know, that was one of their programs. You know, they would watch, you know, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, and then if MacGyver was on, you know, they'd watch that. And
yeah,
so they introduced me to MacGyver, and I can remember just sitting in the living room with them watching MacGyver and thinking how fun it was that they loved the show about as much as I did. You know, and it was just this multi-generational thing that we could all enjoy together as a family, which you know, going through seeing my mom and my dad divorce and everything, that's just a lot of painful
Right.
memories and things. So when you are able to do something like a family like that, especially at a time like that, it was helpful. And those are some of my happiest memories. I can remember watching the show together, and it was fun.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. For me, Jerry, I think I don't know if it was necessarily the happiest memory, but my memory of MacGyver was watching it in my room. I didn't, have a big TV, but in my room I had a little black and white TV that only picked up the basic stations, and
Right.
fortunately for that, it was one of those stations that I picked up, and it became a show that they would air reruns on Sunday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And so Sunday nights, be around 11 p.m. I'm supposed to be asleep, but I'd be in there, watching MacGyver, and it come on. And so I don't think I watched it in the original run, but the reruns that I did watch, I remember growing up with those in my early teens, and watching it every Sunday night. It was, it was almost appointment watching, but I do remember watching.
Nice. Well, that's kind of similar to me. So I don't remember watching like a whole episode. I just remember like I'd go to my, like I said, my aunt and uncles or my grandparents, and it would just kind of be on. So I only remember bits and pieces. So I think for me, it would just be watching this episode, and specifically that scene where Breeze and Carol are talking. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I thought the tension was great. It was like just the right amount. It wasn't melodramatic, but it also wasn't, like just blah. And I liked the back and forth, how she wasn't afraid to tell this, this big dude, this big tough guy, like what it is.
Yeah.
And so I really liked his turn, because he acted the turn pretty well, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to give an honorary mention to, and I don't know if you guys would remember or watch this movie. There's a movie called Half Baked that came out.
I remember it. Yeah.
And there
Dave Chappelle.
They had a term, and there's like different kind of smokers, I guess, people would hang out with. And he goes, then you come across the MacGyver smoker. And, the guys would come up and they're like, hey, we didn't have, some of this. And he's like, get me an avocado, a snorkel, and an ice pick. Trust me, bro, I've made bongs with less.
That goes back to that MacGyver, becoming like a verb, to MacGyver something is to rig something up. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little bit I like to call Gag Me with the Spoon. So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the episode. And so as the guests, I'll let you guys go first.
Oh boy. Well, I might get in trouble for this one, but I'm going to try to do my my worst impression of my somewhat favorite part. So
okay.
So it's right at the beginning where Mrs. Wilson comes out, and Father Lafferty is cleaning, and he's got this kind of vague Irish accent, not
a little bit. So she's like, she says, you should leave that kind of work to me, Father Lafferty. And he says, it's almost Christmas, Mrs. Wilson. I have to work up my brownie points somehow. Although that was probably more Scottish. Sometimes it's hard to do the different.
So I apologize to Ireland and Scotland. Hopefully you haven't lost all your listeners in those places.
If we did, it's probably from something I said. So don't worry about it. What about you, Joe?
Oh, well, I mean, we might lose a few more with this one. Remember in the 80s or even 70s, like they always played the street punks the same way. So when you say like was in this show, and that he was in 21 Jump Street as well, I kind of believe you because it's the same, right?
Right.
So, before Breeze made the change, when he was still a punk, he says, "What I need with this Christmas game?" Like, when he's talking to. And I hated that. I was just like, oh, that is so stereotypical street punk.
Yeah.
What I need for this Christmas game.
Yeah, that's a bad one. Yeah. Well, I had a hard time choosing, so I ended up going with the Santa that I said I'd probably be, and so it's that the Santa that's not enthusiastic at all, and Pete's saying, "Hey, come on, put some feeling into it, ho ho ho," and so the street Santa goes, "Ho ho ho." that's my terrible impression of it.
That's the worst ho ho.
Like the worst ho ho ever.
Your Oscar's in the mail there, Jerry.
There we go. Oh man, but G.I. Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you guys think is the other half?
The other half is understanding that ice cream solves your anxiety.
Nice.
That is strong.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say if ice cream solves your anxiety, why am I so depressed? But
But it would have been perfect if Art if Art was just he had a bowl of ice cream.
Just had a big old bowl of ice cream. Yeah. What about you, Joe?
Well, I was gonna say that the other half of it was MacGyver's first name was Angus.
Angus, yeah.
Oh God. So I mean, if you're ever in a pinch, you can always MacGyver your way out of it.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are both better than mine. I said if knowing is half the battle, the other half is being nice to everyone because you never know who you're really talking to.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. Oh man, guys, this has been a lot of fun. But tell me about your shows. What do you want to plug?
All right. Well, mine is the Cozy Christmas podcast, and on that show, I read stories and talk to guests about their Christmases. We're doing kind of a book theme this year, where I've got a reading prompt every year or every month that we're doing, and then we just chat online about what we're reading for that month and for that reading prompt, and that's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
I'm really getting excited for when it gets closer to Christmas and more people will be joining in. And,
yeah.
But I've got a few loyal listeners out there right now who started with me in January, so we're going to go the whole year. So that's exciting.
Right on. And where can they find you?
On the internet somewhere. Yeah, you can just go to probably the easiest would be to go to if you went to cozychristmaspodcast.com, that's my website, but then it's like Cozy Christmas Pod is just the episodes, but my episodes are on the website too. So just Google search, I'll pop up.
Cool.
I'll be right there on your computer.
On the interwebs.
That's right.
I use Podcast Addict, and I do have Cozy Christmas on there, Art. So
cool.
It's there. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok once in a while. So
I still haven't done the TikTok thing yet. I keep saying I'm gonna, but I don't know.
I can't keep up with Tim Babb with what he's doing. It is a fun channel, but I mostly just put little advertisement clips on mine for that, and
gotcha.
I've gotten a couple people from doing that, so that was fun.
Right on. Mm-hmm. What about you, Joe?
Well, I'm the other half of a duo, the best duo. I'm hoping in this coming Raddy's. Raddy, but myself and my friend Lucky, we host a podcast called Now Watch This, where we watch shows and movies from 80s, 90s to today. It's usually stuff that, that's coming out, or it's picked by our Now Watch This watchers, which we have a page on Facebook called the Now Watch This Watchers, where, we like to interact with fans of the show. And not only that, but just people to post stuff in general, movies and all this. For us, you can go to nowwatchthispod.com, and that'll take you to our links on Spotify and everything. But Now Watch This, I want to say we have a little bit of merch out there. We're not the most handsome of faces, but if you wanted our face on shirt, you can go to 3leggedrabbit.com.
Right on.
Yeah.
Oh man. Again, let me just say it's been a lot of fun talking MacGyver, but especially this episode with y'all. And yeah, I did get a little choked up every once in a while.
I was impressed. I just thought it was a well-written and structured show, and all the things came together, and I don't know. I liked it a lot. Yeah.
I did too. Yeah. I thought it was strong. And it's nice when a show departs from like its standard formula every once in a while, Mm-hmm. And so not only did they depart from their formula, but then they brought in some Christmas magic too. So extra points for that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm very surprised that I hadn't heard of this episode before. In all the Christmas podcasts that I would listen to.
Yeah.
It because it's so strong. Like it is a strong Christmas episode. Like, I recommend anybody who's a Christmas fan go and watch, and whether you're a MacGyver fan or not, like it's a good episode.
And I think that's the thing. You don't even have to be like really into the show to understand what's happening. Like you can dive right in on that and be fit, just follow along just fine. So there's something to be said for that as well. Because there's not a lot of baggage that you need. But on that note, I'm going to end it by saying Christmas is not what you get, it's what you give, like love and understanding and helping out the other guy, and checking us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're feeling like Vincent Battaglia finding his faith, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to check out our merch shop on tpublic.com and our brand new website, totallyradchristmas.com, courtesy of Tis the Podcast Elf, Tom Crow. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a safe night. Later, dudes.
Let's all tune in to Now Watch This, a show that we can listen to whenever we wish.
From comedy shows to scary flicks, you'll laugh and cry with these two guys that make you flip your lid. Field of Dreams to No Holds Barred, Clerks after Renaissance Man. We don't want to grow up, 'cause if we did, we couldn't do Now Watch This.
Bonk, bonk.
I don't want to grow up.
This is Lucky the Dork Dad.
And this is Lil Joe.
And we are the hosts of Now Watch This, a podcast where we watch TVs, we watch movies, and we like to talk about it, and we like for you guys to listen. So listen to us anywhere you get podcasts and at nowwatchthispod.com.
For social media, you can look us up at Now Watch This on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. For merch, you can find us at the number 3leggedrabbit.com. That's the number 3leggedrabbit.com. We got you covered from shirts to shorts to hoodies to thongs y todo.
So again, find us at nowwatchthispod.com. And remember,
keep watching and keep listening.
My name is Art, and I'm the host of the new podcast, A Cozy Christmas. Join me and my daughter Grace as we bring you all the cozy feelings that Christmas has to offer. In the podcast, I read some of my favorite Christmas stories and poems, I share some memories of Christmas past, and I talk about my thoughts on Christmas. I also have an unhealthy addiction to Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol. You can find me on cozychristmaspod.com, and you can find all my social media links there. So stop on over and we'll have some fun together. As the man Charles Dickens himself said, there's nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. And that's the spirit of Christmas that we try to bring to you throughout the year. From all of us here at the Cozy Christmas family, we hope that you have a very Merry Christmas.